Hey, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening whenever you're listening to this audio. It is True Weber, and I want to talk with you about a note taker that takes us into this generation. Now, I think this is an interesting question that I'm going to pose here at the start, and I may pose it again at the end, and that is, what do we expect from a note taker? I think we can ask that same question about a computer or a phone, and I feel like the iPhone has kind of revolutionized that answer. What do we expect from a mobile device, at least in my opinion? So as we continue through this presentation, I kind of want that thought to be at the forefront of our mind. What do we expect from a note taker? So the ElBraille, if you're brand new to this concept, is a note taker that runs on Windows 10. And that to me is completely revolutionary and kind of game-changing because I've only seen note takers that run on, like, let's say Windows C or a proprietary operating system. Of course, we've got the new Braille Note Touch out that's come out in the last year or two that does run on Android, or at least a version of it, which is also a cool thing. As a Windows user, as somebody who uses Windows on a daily basis, as I'm sure we all kind of are, I think that this note taker from VFO Group really helps to kind of equal that playing field. And after kind of describing that this runs on Windows 10, I think now maybe you can understand why that question is posed and why I feel that this is now a question that maybe demands a little bit of a different answer. I don't know, of course, when the concept of the ElBraille was come up with, but I do feel that it's fairly ingenious, not just because it runs on Windows 10, but because of the fact that the unit is a docking station that holds the Focus 14, which is a Freedom Scientific Braille display. So what I've got in front of me is essentially two pieces, but if you felt them together, you really would probably, if you didn't know, think that they were one note taker together, if you will, that was all built together. So it's a docking station that on the very left side of the internal lip, as I'm going to call it, has a USB type connector. That's the micro USB that has the two pins. The Focus 14 slides in and connects in, and then there's some magnets on the Focus 14 that lock it all into place. So it is, of course, possible that this idea was a concept, but the Focus 14 was released at least 2 years ago. So I'm not totally positive. If you're a JAWS user and you use Braille, you'll know that the whole Windows operating system can be driven by the Braille display, and that there are specialized commands that JAWS will allow you to do and use to actually invoke any key on the Windows keyboard, except the print screen. I have to throw that out there. Okay. But I feel like that is pretty awesome. I have always felt more comfortable in a Braille environment. Coming back to the Braille environment, I will say that I use this device more than I use my computer, and I've had it for about the last month. So let's kind of give you a description. Let's talk about the IOs. Let's talk about how this device looks. It's nice and small. It's smaller than the Braille Note Apex, if you've seen one of those. It does have a number of ports on it, and we'll definitely get to those. Let's start at the left side at the top. We've got a stereo speaker that's left, pointing, of course, up to the ceiling, if you will, out of the device. As we go to the right, we're more at the top. We find ElBraille and Boston Braille. Then we find our right stereo speaker, and then we find another grill that I thought was for a microphone, but it's for a fan. This fan only runs when the ElBraille needs it to run, when the temperature's high enough. But there is a fan in the device, and it is able to be used in the case with the fan. As we come down from this left stereo speaker, we're going to go ahead and find several, what I'm going to call function keys. These keys are able to be set to whatever you want them to do, and there is a specialized ElBraille utility that will do that. We've got F1 and F2, and then we've got volume down and volume up, F3 and F4. But I want to verify that we don't think about these as standard F keys on the keyboard, on a QWERTY keyboard. These are specialized for specialized functions, again, that you can set in the ElBraille. Now we're coming off the lip of the actual docking station down onto the Braille display. And I'm not going to go ahead and describe the Focus 14 to you. There's a lot of different buttons on here. Of course, we've got on the face of it 1, 2, 3, 7, 4, 5, 6, 8. And down at the bottom, below the Braille display, we've got our space bar. Now I want to come back to the top left of the docking station. We got this left stereo speaker. Come over to the left. Follow this down. We do have a little magnet plastic device that covers the on-off into USB of the Braille Focus 14 display. And as we come down further, we have a recessed power button. This is what I'm going to say is kind of an inverted rectangle on its side that you can get your finger into and you can press, and we'll get into a little bit more of that later. On the left edge of the ElBraille dock, we've got two things. At the very bottom, or closest to the bottom, we've got a slot where you can put a micro SIM card that will allow cellular connectivity. And going up, we've got our HDMI port that will allow us to connect this to a screen or a monitor. On the right edge, we've got a Velcro that we can undo that will allow us to get to several ports. At the top, closest to the right stereo speaker, like under it, we've got our AC connection. As we come down, we've got our USB port, standard USB 3.0. As we come down, we've got a standard SD slot. And as we come down further, closest to the bottom, we've got our headphone output. I'm in the kitchen right now, and the fridge just came on. So we're all audio geeks in a sense. So I'm using my Bluebird microphone to talk into, and I do have the Zoom H4n Pro sitting at the top here, right above the ElBraille, because I want you guys to hear the ElBraille as best as you can. All the memory in this unit is solid state. So they did a great job of making this unit accessible to us, not only through JAWS speech and Braille, but also through some vibration and beeps when the device is loading or booting. All right, so now that I have those things out of the way, we're going to do several things here. I'm going to boot the unit up, then we're going to restart the unit, and we'll see a couple of different things. And we'll definitely talk about the ins and outs, see how it works, and I appreciate you guys hanging along with me for the ride. So I'm going to take and hold my finger down on this power button. Because I literally have the Zoom sitting on the case of this unit, we're going to hear it click and then start to boot. All right. It's interesting whenever I'm recording this because of the fact that you do get a little bit of a different startup, it seems, every time at this point, okay? So what we've got right now is we just heard it say Windows, so that was JAWS. But every other time I've booted this from shutdown, I have not heard anything, okay? So let me just put that out there. So on the Braille display, we've got a blinking cursor at the left, and it says press a routing. Now I'm going to go ahead and advance this because I feel like it's going to go further and say more. So as I pressed that routing key forward, we didn't get any extra Braille on the display. All it did was refresh, and it says press a routing. So at this point, normally when I boot up the unit, I have had no speech, okay? Now, I expect JAWS is loaded, and I'll Alt-Tab to verify that. Now I'm going to do left shift 4-5. And we have Windows signed in. Now we have nothing on the display. And now I'm going to type in my 4-digit PIN. Okay, so we're not actually typing this in yet. So I'm going to hit enter. Not actually typing this in yet. I'm going to move focus, JAWS, back to sign in. Now what I did is I hit enter again, and I'm going to sign in. Now on the display, all it says is sign in options. So you can understand at this point that it's a little bit hit or miss signing in. It's always a bit different on the initial boot up. So I'm not able to just tell you, hey, here's what you do. You automatically land in the sign-in screen, which is what I find when you actually are on a computer with JAWS 18, is you automatically land in that sign-in screen, at least on Windows 7. And of course, again, we're using Windows 10, so it's going to be a different environment. Now what I want to do, we've got it launched and it's loaded and JAWS is up. Nothing on the display except the blinking cursor. I want to go ahead and restart instead of come from a cold shutdown, and I want to see the difference because there has always been one up to this point. Desktop, Alt F4, restart, enter. Now, remember, I'm using simulated commands to do those different things. So I'll talk about them a little bit. It's going through its restart process. I'll talk about them a little bit, but I'm still fairly new to making these motor commands to myself as far as learning them. And so actually talking about them, I don't want to say the wrong thing or give you the wrong commands. I'll do it a bit. But we're restarting. Each time it vibrates and beeps, Braille display is down like there's no power. Each time it does not beep, we get focus 14. Let's listen. Now I know exactly where I'm at. We had the standard Windows 10 start sound, and we had Windows sign in. Now what happens if I hit enter? Now the question is, Drew, if you wouldn't have alt-tabbed and changed your focus, what would have happened if you hit enter? Well, I tried it right before I started recording from a cold shutdown, and we still got that same kind of thing where, I had to work at it a little bit to get that password in. So just to say that there is a difference in booting up the unit. And I'll also say this now. If you have an ElBraille and you have an audio device plugged in to the 3.5 headphone jack and you boot the unit, it will not boot. So you got to boot it without any headphones plugged into it at all. All right. Now that we got all that out of the way, what I want to do is I want to take you through the unit a little bit, and I want to show you some menus, and I also want to read the description from the website. So I think we'll do that first. I'll read you the description. We'll launch our web browser. We'll go there to freedomscientific.com. We'll read the description, and then we'll really dive into the unit. I think that would be the most appropriate approach. So web browsers, again, running on a Windows 10 environment, you can have whichever web browser set to run that you want. So I have Chrome. I feel like Google Chrome is the fastest web browser that I've tried yet, and so that's what I've got loaded. So, of course, we can test loading a website in both Internet Explorer, which is the default. We can load it in Firefox, and we can load it in Chrome, but I think that's just going to take a lot of time. So let's just load it in Chrome and pull it up and read the description. I'm going to go to freedomscientific.com. That's freedomscientific.com. And I'm going to go to blindness solutions, and I'm going to go to the ElBraille link. So my JAWS is going to read fairly quick. If you want to read it on your own, a little bit slower, that's exactly where I'm going to be. Windows R. Enter. Left shift on the front of the display acts as a stop speech. So I'm going to go ahead and go look for the blindness solutions. So I'm going to insert F7. Blindness solutions. And I'm going to look through this a little bit. All right, so I used H in Braille for headings. Enter. All right, so that is directly from the Freedom Scientific website, their information about the ElBraille. So we got all the specs, hardware, software. So more info, go to freedomscientific.com. All right, I'm going to Alt F4 out of this, and I'm going to then go into the menu that is currently set as our ElBraille function F1. And we're going to look through. This is a specialized menu for the ElBraille. So, Alt F4. Now, here's the interesting thing. These function keys have normally only worked when I've been on the desktop. Last time I was recording this, they worked when I wasn't on the desktop. So let's go ahead and see if we can get the battery. Can't do it, right? Not on the desktop. Okay, so let me do that. Windows M. Now, F2. We've got links here that are going to take us to different software, right? So email, and this all can be set up to your liking. Wraps back around. Let's jump in here and let's see what we got. Keyboard editor is basically going to be where we're able to edit those function keys, what they do. All right, so check for updates is a specialized utility for the ElBraille. I'm not understanding that that is Windows updates. I have checked for Windows updates, and I don't believe that this unit will run creators. It is a 32-bit operating system, okay? Let's go ahead and escape out of this. What I want to do before we really jump into my pros and cons is take a look without going inside the ElBraille. There's a little utility that I like. It's called BellArc Advisor. And this utility basically shows you all the hardware and software inside a computer. Now remember, this is running a full version of Windows 10. So we're able to put any apps on it we want, including BellArc Advisor. And let's go as close as we can inside the ElBraille and see what's running inside it. BellArc Advisor. Continue. I don't necessarily want to check for definitions because of the fact that we just want the profile. Well, they say silence is golden, and so I stopped the recording, and here we are. I've edited the recording, and whenever I pause it or edit it, I will tell you so that it's, I want this to be as true to life as possible as far as loading times on different software and things, okay? So I'm not normally doing that. We are up in the profile of BellArc Advisor. We're in Chrome, and we're going to go ahead and look through at least some of this to see what type of hardware we're running, when the ElBraille was set up from the factory, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to go ahead and down arrow through some of this here. Yada, yada. Gotta. Headings. Okay. That's today. That's my Windows logon. That's the build of Windows that the ElBraille is currently running. All right, so 7.8 is when this was installed. All right, so we're going to go ahead and stop there. Really gave us all the innards that is inside the ElBraille, how much RAM we've got, storage space, etc. And I do have a user 64 gig card that I have purchased and put in here, which is SD. So let's go ahead and exit Advisor. Alt 4, Windows N. Twice, because for whatever reason we got to do that in 10. Now, let's open this up. Opening Word. Braille display is blank. Now we have that from JAWS, opening Word. All right, so I have a Office 365 account, and I've got, I believe it's the home, and so I'm able to have Office on multiple computers, which of course, again, this is considered a computer, not a mobile device from a technological standpoint. So what I want to do is I'm going to put this mic down, and I'm going to go ahead and read. I don't have a stand, so I'm going to go ahead and read in Braille. I'm going to talk about my pros. So smaller than I expected. The ElBraille is just that. It's smaller than I expected. It's, again, smaller than like a Braille note by a little bit. Even though the Braille note could have a bigger display on it as far as Braille display, this is a 14. I'm not talking so much as far as how wide it is. I'm talking from front to back. So hopefully I've explained that. So that's a pro. Definitely small. It's definitely light. Another pro is it feels like a note taker. That is kind of how VFO Group were selling this device. It's a Windows 10 computer dressed up as a note taker. So really, from a consumer note taker standpoint, I feel like this is a great note taker. You can read Braille on it. I'm not going to debate whether 14 cells is enough or too much for you or anything of that nature. You can also input Braille, and you can have your standard Windows 10 apps. So I think that's a great, great thing. You're taking notes on an Apple device with an Apple Bluetooth keyboard or other. You may notice that your device goes to sleep, and you got to take it out of sleep mode. And if you make sure the screen doesn't lock, you know you're going to be using a lot of battery. That's my experience from taking notes on, several 4 or 5 hour basis. This device runs for a long period of time. I'm going to say on a full charge for me, I probably get a good 9-10 hours of use out of it. Now, it depends on what you're doing with it. Depends on what apps are open. Just like any device. Depends on the Wi-Fi. Is it on? Is it searching for networks? But you get a lot of battery life out of it, and it does feel like a note taker. You got the input and you got the output as far as Braille. You don't have to have a headphone in your ear. You can look professional, and it's a Windows 10 device. So I think that is definitely a great thing. So what about some cons? Well, let's jump back first to that note taker kind of thought process. If we're used to a note taker, I've used a Braille and Speak. Yeah, I'm old. I've used a PackMate. Those two note takers are very easy to start and be writing your document. The ElBraille, there's no sleep option on it, okay? So you've got to shut it down, you've got to restart, and once you've known that, you can go into a class environment, you can set it up, you can start it up, you can open Microsoft Word, and you'll know you'll probably need 2 minutes of time to do all of that, okay? Responsiveness is a PC. To me, I came to this with a question, and that was, what is our expectation from a note taker from this generation? It's hard to draw that line between a note taker and a PC when this is running on Windows 10. So if you've got a powerhouse PC that's got 8 to 16 gigs of RAM, I feel like you're going to notice a huge difference when you're opening apps. And we're going to talk about that here in just a minute. But you've gotta understand that this is a note taker. For me, to be able to launch any Windows apps that I want in a device that I can literally carry with me or hang around my neck, it's pretty awesome. All right, so let's talk about the main hard drive. We heard that there is 30 gigs of usable space. Now, I feel like this is the problem. We heard this, of course, when we were looking at Bell Archivisor. Now, this does not negate or take away from the 128 gigabytes of usable space. Inside what I'm going to call the case of this unit, you've got multiple memory modules. You've got solid-state memory that Windows sees as a hard drive. And you've got solid-state memory that Windows sees as an SD card. I'm talking built-in, not expandable by the user. So there's an issue with that. Dropbox, for example, will not allow you to move a directory to removable media. Okay, so the SD card is seen as removable media, even though it's built into the unit. So when Windows sees that there's 128 gigs of memory as an SD card, it's great, but there's a problem with it because of the fact that 30 gigs of usable hard drive space is all we've got for all of our storage. That means Windows updates, that means programs, that means Dropbox. Okay, now there are some ways to get around it. And as I've went and I've looked at Windows 10, it will allow me to install software, or at least some of it, over onto that SD card. So I've set that as my preferred installation so that when I install something new, it goes over there. That's good because I feel like that this memory, like when I got this unit and it was installing a couple updates, I had literally like a gig left and I was like, but So what I want to talk with you about is a program that I've downloaded, Shell Extension. In Windows 10, there's what's called PowerShell built in, and Shell Extension actually allows you to, without knowing all the DOS commands, use a right-click menu or context menu to hard link directories. Now, I was pretty new to this when I got the ElBraille, hard linking directories. I didn't really know what it meant, and what it means is Windows sees a directory at a specific path. So let's say the C drive, I have my Dropbox on, but my Dropbox storage is actually residing over on that 128 gig SD card. Windows doesn't know it, but that's where it is. That's what, in a nutshell, from what my experience is, that's what hard linking a directory does. So again, Shell Extension is a free software that you can download and install that will allow you to quickly, in a context menu, say, okay, I want to take this directory and I actually want to tell it that the directory is over here. So you drop that directory in a different place. The directory doesn't move, but the link for it, as far as Windows knows. So what does that solve? Well, that solves the issue of Dropbox. Now all my Dropbox is stored on that 128 gig SD card, okay? Even though Windows doesn't think it is. All right, so you've heard Jaws speaking through this speaker, or this stereo speakers that are in this unit. I have the volume turned up max for the stereo speakers in the unit, for the internal audio, and as well for Jaws. So if you want to listen to anything in a somewhat noisy environment, you're not going to be able to do it with the internal speakers that are in this unit. You're not going to be able to because it's not loud enough. So, okay, yep, you can hook up a Bluetooth connection to it, and it does very well. Sounds great through Bluetooth. So that's something that you can do to remedy that. All right, so I want to jump back to the apps that I have installed on here. I've got several apps that, in my opinion, push the boundaries of a note taker. All right, so for example, the app that I really love on here, though, is Station Playlist Studio. I'm not going to lie. I know it's just a little bit of icing on the cake, but I love to have Station Playlist installed on this thing. Now, remember, the Bluetooth connection, super solid. And so music through the Bluetooth sounds great. So what I normally do is I've got JAWS going through these speakers if I need them, or I'm using Braille because that's really why I got the unit, to really be able to use Braille. And then I've got Station Playlist Studio. It's fairly solid. It really doesn't eat too much battery. It really runs nicely once it's open. And that's pretty sweet to be able to have Station Playlist on a device that I can literally take anywhere with me. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. It's a little bit of icing on the cake, but I'm down with it. I use it a lot. It's got its pros. It's got its cons. It's a first-generation device. It's the first note taker that runs on Windows 10. It's pretty freaking awesome. Thanks, guys. Take care. Have a good one, and I'll be back at you soon.